Hey, sweeties, welcome back to another episode of Siren's Call. This is going to be another mini episode where I kind of go over the journal. So far, I have visited every one of my friends except Violet. So, what I've kind of broken things down is the first couple pages you receive from Emil. I feel like he's the closest one that kind of keeps track of things. I would say he was the secretary of our like school government if we had one. I'd be the president, he'd be like the secretary. So I got the first couple pages from him. The pages that explain our muses I received from Ashton, which I feel like that makes the most sense. I feel like he's kind of the guy to like give everyone their D&D character descriptions. Um I got some pages about location, like more of an environmental type of description from Judith, and I hadn't met Andy yet, so I didn't really know some of the names mentioned in Judy's pages. So I kind of rushed through these. I They didn't seem that interesting to me, so they're in a previous episode. But I will be going over the pages that I received from Andy, which if I look at them right, I would say are from maybe pages 8 to 14, maybe page 7. Um Yeah, okay, this sounds a little new. So, we'll read this one over as page 1 of Andy's pages. So, vials of passamine appear in small glass bottles, purpose many but primarily sustenance. Given that he is Ashton's muse, it perhaps comes as no surprise that Caldera's appetite is just as endless and reckless as his wielder's. As though seeking as the other muses need no form of food or water, I do not think Ashton's muse eats anything to sate the same sort of hunger that we all feel as humans, but more to aid us. Rather, Ashton's muse is able and eager to use heat and pressure within his body to effectively transmute things that he eats into other things. The vials of pasminth are no exception, as they were produced by Ashton's muse after he ate several scoops of gravel and sand off the ground of the rib cage. At first glance, they are ordinary, although beautiful, glass flasks, and Andy opted to use one as a fancy water bottle. Oh, that's kind of weird because she just gave us a water bottle and she told us that she had plenty more from her sponsorship. I wonder if she meant the underworld sponsors her or something like that. I don't know. She had filled one with water from the human world and carried it with her into the underworld. However, when she oh, that's weird. I think they meant took. When she took it out to take a drink, it was no longer clear water, but rather had taken on a slime green hue. Judith tried to point it out to her, but Andy, of course, was not paying attention. This would prove to be insightful, however, as cuts and bruises on Andy's knees started to close up and shrink before our eyes. Though through experimentation, we discovered that other liquids can be transmuted in a similar fashion, including but not limited to coffee, ibuprofen, and gasoline. Is the transmutation of liquids in the flasks an effect on the other world or of the flasks themselves? Perhaps combination of the two. It's hard to say. More research may be required. Nullifier appearance, modified headset, purpose, defense against siren songs. We kind of learned about this a little earlier in Emil's pages. Being that Siren's primarily means of attack is through their songs, it became an exceedingly good idea to engineer a means to counteract it, if only to take the edge off their disabling effects. The local electronics store had several noise canceling headsets on sale. Between Judith and myself, we were able to take the headsets and modify them so that we could block out frequencies at which the siren songs sang the most often. Of course, it does not protect against everything that the sirens are capable of, but it does afford us a fighting chance. Thankfully, our muses seem not to need them, which is a relief because I have no idea where we would put a headset on a hedgehog. We must never go into the underworld without wearing them, as they are our first line of defense against sonic assault of the sirens. The Widowmaker. Appearance bass guitar with red strings. Weapon for use against the sirens. Now, this is pretty interesting as well because when you first arrive in Violet's home, that's where you start in the game. Um, Oliver says he hasn't played the bass very often. I think he said it had been months and he since he's played it for Violet. So I guess he brings it with him to the underworld. But he considers that as a means of attack and not really plucking the strings, as one would say. At first glance, the Widowmaker seems like an ordinary bass guitar. In its ordinary incarnation, it was an ordinary bass guitar. Our leader had it lying around and decided that it would be the best thing to use as a weapon against the sirens. Indeed, it is as good as most things of its size for battering and smashing. While the frame of the guitar is surprisingly sturdy, the original strings were not. They snapped shortly after a few strings. Our leader was content to keep using it despite its broken strings, but Violet had an interesting, if morbid, idea to replace the strings of the guitar with the vocal cords of a siren. I don't think that's morbid. I think that's very smart. I think that is the move to use their songs against them. That makes sense to me. Judith and I set ourselves upon the rather baleful task of restringing the guitar. The procedure was unsettling as it was end result, but I cannot deny its effectiveness. When our leader plays notes on the restrung guitar, the songs of the sirens echoes from the chords. So, as long as he can learn and remember the sequences of the notes, he can fight the sirens with the same songs that they use against us. Of course, if all else fails, he can swing it as an axe, as he previously did, and the vocal cords never seem to snap. So I wonder if he brought. I'm assuming they bring everything they bring with them into the underworld, out the underworld. So I'm assuming he brought the guitar back and he's afraid to play the guitar in the real world because those are the cords of a siren. We don't know how they would really interact with real life. Razor chrome brush, simple paintbrush. Purpose: weapon for use against sirens. It's no secret that Violet has an epiphany, epiphany for painting. It stands to reason that she has quite a collection of brushes made from the hairs of different animals, including squirrels, hogs, and goats. Since Violet has no experience in martial arts or using any sort of weapon, she decided to bring a hog bristle paintbrush with her into the underworld. In all fairness, the bristles are strong and flexible, which are good qualities for a weapon to have, but its range is pitiful and lacks any sort of edge or weight. It is poorly suited for harming anything but fragile canvas. Yeah, why would you bring a paintbrush in to fight these like demon monsters? That doesn't make any kind of sense. But anyway, this would change, however, when she decided to weave bits of siren hair into the brush, then sharpen it through the treatment of turpentine and aluminum. Now the brush is actually sharp enough to pierce skin and muscle tissue with enough force. So I don't understand. How are they getting shit like this? Like they're killing sirens, and then they're just like, let's take its hair, let's take its vocal cords. Like, what are they doing? Like, I'm so confused. Like, that just seems weird to me. But anyway, additionally, because the brush still holds paint and paint like substances, Violet also brings several brightly colored solutions with her into the underworld. These solutions resemble paint, but they are most certainly not, as hydrocarbon based paint poisoning is not nearly as fast acting or as deadly as the ailment Violet inflicts upon the sirens with those solutions. Okay. Bat out of hell. Heavily modified baseball bat. Okay, this is Ashton's. Only Ashton would think of attaching a flamethrower to a baseball bat to create a veritable Franken weapon. I don't think a weapon like this could ever be safe for the wielder despite Judith's best attempts. I myself would question its effectiveness since fire is often super flourish, but it certainly gets the job done. In situations where Ashton cannot get close enough to a siren, he can simply spray fire all over them. I really don't have too much to say here. The weapons speak volumes for itself between its insane conception and hacky construction. At least it doubles as a torch in dark areas, so that is that, I suppose. Well, I can see that. Well, I don't know if the paints would be flammable, but Violet could spray her paint and then Ashton come in with the flamethrower. That'd be pretty cool. Ugh. Indomitable fist. Cloth wraps. Weapon used against sirens. Well, aren't they all used against sirens? Like, anyway. And I's belief was and still is that the human body is the greatest weapon of all. I'm assuming this little like eyes here is supposed to be Andy. Anyway, in some ways, I find it hard to disagree as the body can be strengthened repeatedly, repair itself often, and cannot be stolen or knocked out of one's hand. She has some knowledge of Taekwondo and Muay Thai. So it follows that she would use her fist and feet to fight the sirens. While this does mean that Andy needs to be closer up than any of the rest of us, right in the face of the siren for those who have faces anyhow, she can also get into and out of range with amazing speed. Sometimes I think she gets a bit too excited when throwing sequences of punches and kicks. It could be mistaken for savagery to those who don't know her well, but I cannot blame her for applying 100% of herself in a fight for her life and the lives of others. So this little typo here, oh, I see it now. I saw it as and I, but looking at this, I don't know that little like space right there. I know it's definitely the font because like look at the spaces between these letters. It just I don't know. It really threw me off there for a second. Anamari Kinsanu. Oof, I cannot say some of these. Okay, it's concluded it's not the real sword. Otherwise, it would have not cost only $200. And the mere act of holding it would probably be an international felony. Even though it's close enough for me, the satisfaction that comes from drawing and sheathing the blade has never ceased to please me, even after 6 years of practice. Now all the practice pays off as our endeavors into the underworld afford me the opportunity to use it against the sirens. It is said that the samurai of ancient Japan would slay not only the enemies of their ruling daimyo, but also the oni, or demons. Although the underworld is a name that we have transposed upon nightmare residing within the locker, the sirens are certainly demonic in appearance and perhaps even in nature. That means that this sword is rather perfect. Is a rather perfect fit for both myself and for the task at hand. I must do all I must do is ensure that the edge is well maintained, as that too in an aspect of bushido that comes with the respect of the blade and oneself. Oh my goodness. Starch Cipher MKIV, Potato Cannon. After a few hilarious failed attempts, Judith and I managed to construct a potato cannon using an old leaf blower and some spare parts from Ashton's dad's garage. It is simple enough that in its construction, as it is a cannon that shoots potatoes over 100 miles per hour. Judith can fire other things from it, but potatoes have proven the most cost effective ammunition. Due to a slight glitch in the combustion component that launches the potato, the cannon also superheats the potato itself. The bad news is that it needs to cool down between uses, but the good news is that the potatoes wind up exploding shortly thereafter they emerge from the cannon's barrel. This is rather effective for dealing with groups of sirens as they are not unaffected by the force of the explosions or by the scalding burns of piping hot mush. Yeah, I see that for Judith. I really do. So, just to go over it, it looks like the vials help them create weapons, and then the rest are just weapons of each character, which is pretty interesting. I think the most interesting weapon, in my opinion, would definitely be the guitar. I know it's kind of silly, but the fact that they're manipulating the vocal cords of the sirens to shoot their songs back is kind of genius. Like, I know they said it's morbid or whatever, but it's genius. I mean, I really like that concept. Let me know down in the comments below, what weapon were you most impressed by? I'd really like to see like artwork of the actual weapons. I think we kind of do, at least with Ashton, because when we visit him, the little chibi character has a baseball bat with like a little flame on it. But I don't know, the potato cannon sounds cool. Like they all sound pretty cool, but I definitely want to see the bass guitar 100%. Uh, don't forget to subscribe and like the video for more content. And again, this is a mini episode, so it's not super duper required, but it will help out when I reference things from the main episodes to kind of have some background knowledge on things.